English translation. 421st contact. Sunday, 28th of May, 2006, 17:01 hours.
As Florena told you last night, I come for a short visit today because I am personally taking care of the monitoring apparatus today. Be greeted, Edward.
Welcome, and Salome. You arrive very conveniently for me, because I have received an inquiry from Germany, which I am supposed to answer in one of the next bulletins. It is a question concerning the leadership of the Phi Gu. I have asked Bernadette about this so that she can give an answer. If you want to hear the whole thing, also the question and my own short answer,
Yes, I am interested in the matter.
then here, this is the question.
Question telephone question.
The Phi Gu, or Free Interest Group, is a statutory association, but it somehow falls out of its usual role because Billy Meyer is the leader, as is generally known. Usually. However, an association does not have a leader, but a board of directors, which holds the position of the leader, which is managed according to the will of the General Assembly of the association. But since this is not the case with Phi Gu, the question may be asked why this is the case, and whether Billy Meyer is not the one in power of the association, and therefore nothing more than a sect guru, or am I wrong? I would appreciate an open and honest answer in one of your next bulletins. Gu Heisenberg, Germany.
My answer to that.
Answer.
This question is to be answered openly and honestly, and also in detail, but I do not want to give an answer on my part, but rather have it answered objectively by a competent member of the association. I hope that you will understand, as well as many others, what is meant by the leadership of our association Phi Gu, that this is not a position of power and not a position of a sectarian guru.
And here is Bernadette's work on this, which I will read to you.
Leaders and Guides of the Phi Gu. The fact that Billy Edward Albert Meyer has been nominated and laid down in the Statutes and Articles of Association as Director and Leader of Phi Gu Free Interest Group for Frontier and Humanities and Ufological Studies gives many humans the impression and the conviction that he automatically holds the position of a guru and that the sole power in his association lies in his hands. For example, in the sense of an absolute dictator or a sect leader who does not tolerate any contradiction from his flocks in bondage. The position of director-leader puts Phi Gu in the eyes of many humans in a dubious proximity to sects and religious communities, and thus makes it suspect to many. In a certain sense, this is even understandable for the members of Phi Gu are, if it is assumed that hardly anyone is more precisely informed about the internal and external structures of the association, and that those who doubt or even attack Phi Gu are unaware of the structures and how they work, as well as the fact that they have not only proved themselves in practice, but are genuinely progressive for the development of the members and the growth and prosperity of the association. In the statutes of the Phi Gu Association, which are open to the public, the directing leading of Phi Gu is mentioned only once, namely in art. 8 organs of the association, where, after the list of the bodies of the association, it is mentioned almost casually. The direction with a leading and advisory function of the Phi Gu Association after Billy's death is taken over by the whole core group under the direction of the association's board of directors. Even this one mention of the directing shocked leading makes one sit up and take notice, since it is not described in the manner one would actually expect, although the phrase contains the undisputed fact that Billy, during the time of his life, maintains the direction and leading of the Phi Gu. It does not refer to a single heir to his position, nor does it define or circumscribe his power, but it clearly states that after his death, Responsibility passes to the 49-member core group and its 9-member board of directors, who will continue to share the directing and leadership of the association. In order to bring more light into the organization of Phi Gu, we now turn to the internal statutes which regulate the inner life of the association, respectively its internal cohabitation and functioning. The rights of the leadership are of particular interest to outsiders and to those involved members of Phi Gu in art. 18, paragraph 15 states, special meetings to deal with extraordinary matters can be called at any time without notice by the Phi Gu management, board of directors, further in art. 37, paragraph 1, the person authorized to sign for Phi Gu as well as for postal and bank accounts and all notarial and official business, etc., is its directing person, Billy Edward Albert Meyer, as an individual. In addition, the president and the treasurer of postal and bank accounts have 2 legally binding signatures. Art. 42, para. 5. Extraordinary meetings, gatherings, and general meetings may be convened for decisions of the directorship of the mother core group of the 49. Thus, insofar as the rights of the director, leader of the Phi Gu, which, apart from the financial responsibility which he has to justify and disclose to his members at any time, at their request, are exhausted in the right of the latter, to convene urgently needed meetings without the approval of the General Assembly of the core group, that is to say, the innermost responsible organizational element. Articles 46 and 47 clearly and unambiguously define the position and the power of the director, leader of the Phi Gu art. 46 para 2. The person named as director of the core group of the 49, Billy, remains a regular member of the core group with the same rights and duties as all other members, without a translated position in relation to the remaining members, and with art. 47. We mention one of the most important maxims of Phi Gu as human beings, as well as Phi Gu members, co-workers, office holders, and office administrators. All members of the Phi Gu Association and their sister groups are equal in terms of the rights and duties, etc., of men and women, and therefore have equal rights without distinction. This clearly states that the director, not leader of Phi Gu, has no special position which would give him power over the members of his association, or even grant him such power. In contrast to most other forms of organization known on our Earth, Phi Gu, in its innermost core, is regulated so that resolutions and decisions can only come about and be ratified if all members agree with the resolutions and decisions taken, that is to say, if there is unanimity within the innermost structure. Although this approach is not the only one on our planet, nor is it an invention of Phi Gu, nor does it originate from the wise deliberations of its leader. It is based on the ancient traditions of Indian tribes, which in turn have experienced that a project can only be effectively implemented and have permanence if all those involved and affected by it agree with the decisions made. This form of natural democracy developed when the experienced elders of Indian tribes and clans came together in a council of elders to guide the destiny of the people. For their part, the elders of the Indian clans, with their experience of life and their foresight for the welfare of all, found the ears of the entire people, who also experienced that the elders did not make their decisions lightly and thoughtlessly, according to whims and emotions, but carefully and deliberately. Of course, this form of natural democracy cannot be applied to a whole mass of the people, a large clan, or, in the case of Phi Gu, to the entire passive membership of the association, where a majority decision will certainly suffice. But in relation to the actual responsible body of the association, the core group, this form of democracy is of the greatest advantage, because it guarantees not only progress and consistency, but also the responsible and accountable implementation of decisions, as well as the careful and well thought out planning of submissions and inputs. This responsible action and thinking is supported by the fact that each individual member of the central organizational core is fully aware that he or she is liable in all matters and in equal shares, together with the other responsible persons for everything and anything. This liability is regulated by the statute's art. 14 para. 4 as follows. Any liability, including criminal liability, can only affect those responsible for causing the damage, but never can recourse be had to the passive group. No member of the internal core group of the FIGU will be tempted to make a thoughtless, unclearly structured and superficial request, which could possibly damage the good of the community, since, due to the unanimity required and the liability of those responsible, such a plan will never come about. Of course, this requires from the members of the responsible body, as well as from the leadership, a rich measure of readiness for discussion, the will and the strength of rationalities, and a clear awareness of the responsibility towards oneself, the association, and the aims of the association. Apart from this, it must also be guaranteed that no agreements can be made before a vote is taken, which prevents personal interest from being asserted and a lobby being formed, as is common practice in today's politics. This possibility must not only be prevented by organizational means, but must also be accepted and respected by each individual member. Before the monthly General Assemblies of FIGU, proposals and inputs are put on the agenda in such a manner that no further information can be taken from the given keyword. The proposers have to formulate and represent their concerns before the assembled membership, after which the discussion of the proposal is released, and after a reasonable period of time, the proposal is voted on, whereby the individual vote counts, which means that each member has an equal vote, including the director leader, whose vote does not carry more weight than the votes of the other core group members. Since the leader has to submit his proposals in the same wise as all other members, his proposals do not have a better chance of being accepted. If this is the case, it is because the leader's proposals are more rational, logical, thoughtful, and beneficial to the common good than those of other members who are not yet able to think and plan as broadly. If there is no unanimous decision, the proposal is either postponed to the next General Assembly or to a later time, or it is completely rejected in the form presented and discussed. Of course, there is always the possibility of resubmitting a rejected proposal in a modified form and putting it up for discussion again. Thus, it is already clear from the internal and external structure of FIGU that Billy, as director leader, has no possibility to use his position to gain personal power or to manipulate the members, as his vote does not count more than that of any other member, and his word is not more important than that of any other member. Only the organization of FIGU and its rules, which are clearly and unambiguously laid down in its statutes and bylaws, prevent a guruism, and it can be said and even proven with good reason that Billy's word is no more valid than that of any other member. Anyone who has ever been confronted with the spirit of contradiction and rebelliousness of individual, respected and proven core group members will understand that Billy's word is not an absolute must for FIGU members, that on the other hand, it can always be intervened, rebelled and tackled with more or less decency and respect, and that clever counter-arguments in the matter have an absolute chance of being heard by the other members and Billy. FIGU is an extremely lively and flexible association, which, in the more than 30 years of its existence, has not only grown homogeneously and developed steadily, but has also contributed much to the personal development and growth of its members. If we turn our attention to the history of Figu, it quickly becomes clear why the position of a director, leader, was and is necessary, and what this position demands of its holder. In the mid-1970s of the last century, the press reported that a man lived in the Zurich Oberland who was allegedly visited by extraterrestrials and who was in active contact with them. This report, which was distributed by various press organs, soon brought together a small group of interested ones who wanted to know more about the matter for various reasons. Some of these interested ones became friends with the contact person and began to support him, still without having any real idea where the whole thing would one day lead to and what the real purpose of these contacts was, while innumerable came and went without leaving a trace. Soon there was talk about spiritual teaching and of a mission to be fulfilled, but none of those involved at that time could really get an idea of it, let alone of what had to be considered and fulfilled in order to get this mission going. From those of the first interested ones, a few strong characters remained, to which others joined over the years, who often expressed their personal potential primarily by rebelling against everything and everyone and fighting themselves as well as everyone else and trying to bring all and everything down. Strangely enough, however, all of them were extremely true and loyal to Billy and regarded him as their personal, only and true friend, even if they all too often treated him with absolute disrespect and disregarded, negated, and often even insulted him when something did not suit them. Billy had the utterly thankless task, on the one hand, to launch his mission with this wild bunch of those who were disoriented in themselves and put it on a firm footing in order to give it a future and to secure and guarantee its impact into the far future of our Earth, and on the other hand, to teach the members who were insecure in themselves about true humanity and to help them to cope with their personal problems in a manner that enabled them to develop themselves without becoming dependent on him, his advice and his help. The beginnings of Figu were under a dark star due to the stubbornness and selfishness of its members, and for a long time it was not entirely clear whether the individual members would overcome the hurdles and successfully navigate the cliffs of their character shoals. In this time of upheaval and change, Figu needed nothing more necessary than a clear-sighted, far-sighted and intelligent leader and director who would be able to steer the destiny of the association and the mission on the right tracks, and at the same time be an example, teacher and leader for the members. Since the early members resembled more a frightened bunch of homeless wanderers than a powerful and steadfast community of purposeful and clear-sighted members, a leader was needed who could take the architecture of the association into his own hands and, if necessary, assert himself against the rebellious followers with toughness and vigor. What could be more obvious than to burden the master builder of the association, Billy, with all the responsibility and might that no one else could bear? So Billy not only had to be able to speak a mighty word, but also had to have a clear vision and know exactly how to implement this vision and achieve the goal. Figu's statutes and bylaws of association and the regulation of the internal and external structure of the association are not only the result of many years of experience, but they are, in their essence and in their structure, the sole result of Billy's work, which he took on at a time when no one could have imagined that the internal bodies of the association would ever come to this point to take up and carry on his legacy. Of course, it should not be concealed that he could rely in many parts and matters on the valuable advice and active support of his extraterrestrial friends, who gave their valuable input and helped to make the Figu rules and regulations a practical and reasonable foundation, as they always supported and accompanied him and the entire group faithfully in a grateful and helpful manner. The statutes and bylaws of Phi Gu are not aimed at short or medium-term survival or functioning, but are in their basic features such that they could not only ensure the well-being and prosperity of the association and its members in the long term, but could also serve in the future as a yardstick for a wide-ranging and global order. Billy's set of rules is unique in its maxim that the organs of the association must serve the purposes of the association and implement these purposes, as well as to enforce the decisions of the General Assemblies internally and externally for the benefit of the entire community. The internal organs of the association have no power whatsoever, nor does Billy himself, but their task is limited exclusively to implementing and enforcing the decisions of the entire group. It is clear, therefore, that Billy, from the earliest years of the emerging Phi Gu Association, deliberately and with full intention, rigorously curtailed his own rights because the well-being and prosperity of the association and the realization of its mission were more important to him than his personal ambitions for power and material security, if such ambitions ever existed, which can be completely excluded. Considering his achievements in relation to the architecture of the association, its structure and the nature of its direction and leadership, which will be discussed below. Every single member of the internal structure of the association has always needed and continues to need Billy's advice and help, and has taken and takes advantage of it, trusting that he or she will be listened to and advised correctly, wisely, and according to his or her needs. Billy's manner and ability to respond to each individual and to advise them according to their needs and in accordance with their mentality and character has created a basis of trust, which is decisive as a foundation for the mission and personal development of each member. In order for him as a leader and guide to be able to achieve this at all, without exploiting the trust of his members and using it to satisfy his own power needs, he had and has to learn and master the high art of powerless leadership and authority. The powerless leadership and authority demands that he puts his knowledge, logic, foresight, ability, and wisdom completely and unreservedly at the service of his mission and the members, without manipulating, inducing, or in any wise pressuring or coercing anyone, and yet enforcing that the group decisions and resolutions, the duties and tasks are correctly fulfilled and implemented by all. His authority is based on his human and doctrinal competence and the prestige he has acquired through this with the members of his association, and it includes his skill in dealing with human beings, his wisdom and his honor, which prevents him from being unjust, selfish, or power-crazed and exploitative. His style of leadership is neutral, logical, restrained, respectful, and loving towards the members, but unambiguous, clear, strict, true to the line and rules in the matter, and he is completely free from ingratiation, flattery, or seduction. His type of leadership is a practiced and lived spiritual teaching, arising from the clear and logical knowledge that every member has to go his or her own way and carry out their own development, and it contains the power to enforce the logical leadership and direction of the association in the direction to be taken, if necessary with an unmistakable, thunderous word of might which pierces even the thickest board in front of the head of the defaulters, rebels, and rebellious ones, and calls them to order. The allegiance of the members of the association is an absolutely voluntary one, which is based on the experience of the individual. That his or her personality, his or her way, and his or her mentality are respected and recognized by Billy and the other members, and that they can always act and behave as they are, as an individual human being. Nevertheless, a member can terminate their membership at any time without consequences if this is in their mind and desire. Even longer periods of dispensation are possible, during which everyone can take the opportunity to turn their attention to completely different things. During these dispensation periods, a member is released from all obligations, but still has access to all internal group information and is treated as friendly and openly as everyone else. Until the overall development of the association and the individual members has progressed and is progressing, to the point where they are in a position to guide and direct the destiny of the association and the mission itself in a responsible and consistent manner. Billy is entrusted with this task, which he must perform in his function as director, leader, in the sense and for the benefit of the community, without making personal profit from it, satisfying his own striving for power or acquiring a special reputation. In his function as the director and leader of Figu, he must not only take care of the architecture and the construction and development of the association and the association center, but of everything and anything. His task is the organization, the course, and the development of the given possibilities. He bears the responsibility where their actual responsible persons are still too weak to fulfill their task, and he is the brainstormer and pathfinder until the innermost organs of the association are far enough along to take everything into their own hands in corpora, Latin, in body, shac substance, and to direct and lead in the sense and for the benefit of the community, which requires that he gradually, with increasing ability of the innermost organs of the association, holds back in his leadership role and slowly withdraws to gradually give up the reins. In this, Billy's reward is small and limited to the love, recognition, and friendship of his members, who stand by him and the mission in all dangers and begin to recognize and bear their responsibility in the form in which it must be borne in the spirit of the spiritual teaching, in community, equality and equal rights in the service of the cause and the welfare of all. Without his example, his commitment and help, his friendship and wisdom, nothing would exist. Or, what would be even worse, everything would have degenerated into a sect, with a guru who leads his followers into dependency and bondage, exploits them and makes them incapable of living, and finally leaves them as empty shells, mentally and physically ill and confused in consciousness and disoriented, without the possibility of ever finding themselves again and leading a calm and conscious life resting in themselves, in the certainty of being master and mistress of their own thoughts, needs, and decisions. But this is exactly where the difference between Figu and its members and the countless sects and their members lies, namely in the independence and freedom of the individual, in their ability to live, in their self-reliance, equality and equal rights and progressive development of consciousness on the part of Figu-si, and on the part of the sects, in mental, emotional, and material dependence and bondage, which feign freedom, peace, happiness, and self-determination, but to drive humans into incapacity for life, and to deprive them of true progress and real evolution by all means for material security, and for the fulfillment of the unjust and unjustified striving for might of a single human who appears to be more, and to be able to do more than his or her followers, and who can only prove this with well-chosen words, but not with deeds. But in life and evolution, words count for nothing. Only deeds reveal the meaning and quality of a thing, a teaching, and a human being. Bernadette Brand, Switzerland.
What do you think?
Bernadette's answer is very good and detailed, which is why it should be put on the internet and a mini pamphlet should be made from it. I, for my part, feel the need for this article to be integrated into Hans Georg's book as well.
You are anticipating my request, my friend, because I wanted to ask you if we should do this. But one more question. Religious belief is hereditary, after all, and is established in the temporal lobe and the posterior parietal lobe as a form of schizophrenic disease. We have already spoken about this in our last conversation on the 24th of May. But what I would like to know now is this. Are football and the like extreme sports, and certain passions also inherited in the same or a similar wise.
That is indeed the case. These inheritances also fall into the realms of diseases which express themselves in the form of fanaticism and uncontrollable states of excitement, of getting very badly, or of control of the good human nature, which can get out of control in such a wise that destructive rage, hatred, lack of compassion, and even acts of killing, etc. result. These factors occur in the individual human being, whereby they turn into a malevolent force when several like-minded ones come together. Because those affected by the disease lose control over their thoughts, feelings, and actions as they fall into a frenzy of destructively being out of control.
This is alien to you, no?
This is indeed the case, which was not the case in earlier times. These diseases have been eradicated over the course of time, mainly by stimulating the mind and rationality through training courses, in order to consciously recognize and fight fanaticism and uncontrollable states of excitement, of getting very badly out of control of the good human nature, and to bring them under control.
Certainly not an easy task, which was probably a lengthy one.
This had to be assumed from the beginning. The process in relation to the total population then also took about 100 years before the diseases were eliminated and no longer hereditary.
Could one say that human beings who have fallen prey to these diseases, whether hereditary or not, are mentally incapable of raising themselves to serenity and objectivity in order to be big and strong in themselves? And further, like a zealot, or rather a fanatical zealot of faith, in my opinion, sports fanatics and extreme sportsmen of all kinds, as well as their followers, are a form of zealot, a peculiar form, however, of which, on the one hand, are fanatical of faith and fanatical of admiration for their own sport or for sportsmen, but on the other hand are jealous of the sportsmen, whether footballers, mountaineers, or racing drivers, etc., in the wise that they envy them. On top of this, however, there is the other form of jealousy, which consists in the addiction to sports idols, etc. A further factor is that both the sportsmen and extreme sportsmen, etc., as well as their fanatical followers, can only confirm themselves and believe that they would achieve a great and extraordinary performance through their actions and behavior, etc.
As you say, so it is. But now, Edward, I must return to my work which calls me. If you have any further questions, we will have to postpone them until my next visit. Goodbye, dear friend.
Goodbye.